Welcome, welcome to MJTV. Today we're going to talk about tiny homes. What is a tiny home and what are your options? So, what is a tiny home? This is Mary Jo from EXP with MJTV. It's not HDTV because we tell it like it really is. And you can't build a home in half an hour with commercial breaks. So, thank you so much for coming. We're going to talk about tiny homes. But before we do that, I'm inviting you to log in below. Like, comment, email me, text, tell me what you think and what you'd like to hear. I'd love to hear back from you. So, what is a tiny home? Have you ever thought of Marie Kondoing your whole life, dumping the stuff and living the tiny home life? Did you know that half of our fellow Americans are thinking about a tiny home? Wow, I didn't know. So the definition of a tiny home is by the International Residential Code defines 400 square feet or less of floor area. That's really small. That's like a 40 by 10. So looser definitions are about 1,000 square feet. Over that amount is a small house. And the tiny house can be on wheels, it can have a full basement, it can have foundation, it can be on piers. You want to choose according to how you want to live, where you want to live, and the climate. Remember, if you're on wheels, you're above ground, and if it's really cold, that floor can get a little chilly. The idea of a tiny home is not new. In fact, there are lots of tiny homes throughout Minneapolis and St. Paul. Last summer, I showed a tiny home, 673 square feet in South Minneapolis, built in 1921. It was a little too small for my buyer, but there were 15 other offers and it went $20,000 over list price. Who knew? When I was a kid, my cousins had a tiny house in the backyard. It was called the Baba House. Their grandmother would come from California for the summer and stay in her little house and, use the bathroom, the kitchen, and all in the main house. And then in the fall, she'd go back to California. So that was a while ago. Tiny homes have been around and they're coming back. What's the allure of a tiny home? It's a little like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Buyers go out and they look at the big home with lots of windows, lots of room, maybe 2-3 bathrooms, and the mortgage is big. Then they go to the medium-sized house, which is in high demand, and prices have shot up 16% year over year, and sometimes they need a lot of repairs or in multiple offers. So they don't want that big a mortgage. So then, like Baby Bear, they found the littler bed, and that seemed to feel just right. It's no secret that millennials, 63% of them, are thinking about owning a tiny home. But guess what? 40% of tiny homes are already owned by the over 50 crowd. So it's both sides that are looking at tiny homes. Here's an interesting chart that'll show you something that shows similar traits of tiny home owners. 89% of homeowners have less credit card debt than the average person in the US. 60% have zero credit card debt. And 55% have far more savings than the average person. So all that adds up and tells you that they are financially conservative. The cost of buying or building a tiny home is way less than the average 2,500 square foot house. I think right now, the average price in the Twin Cities is about $300,000, substantially higher than last year. But a tiny home can be totally personalized to your needs. Many tiny homes are energy efficient. Some are net zero ready for solar panels to provide electricity and heat. It has a tiny carbon footprint and very little waste. Owners tend to buy fresh fruit rather than processed, and the kitchens are also small and hyper efficient. All in all, they're generally financially conservative, energy efficient, and very mindful of ecology. So what are the benefits of a tiny home? Well, the average cost is lower than the average home, of course. And we've seen prices of existing homes just skyrocket. That's really pricing some people out of the market completely. So a tiny home could be an answer. They are energy efficient. New tiny homes are energy efficient. Many have solar panels powering electricity, cooking, and heating for free. And they are fossil free. Most of them do not have gas. I mean, you'd have to hook it up anyway, but they're designed to be electric homes. Number three, they have a small carbon footprint, and being tiny forces owners to be mindful of their shopping habits, what they eat, how they cook, and not accumulating a garage full of stuff that they're never going to use. Number four, some are on wheels, so you can take it with it. RV sales scale or just jumped like 50% in 2020 because in the pandemic, people were quarantined and they just had to get out of the house. What kind of homes are there? First, there are the do-it-yourselfer homes. Now, for do-it-yourselfers, you do need construction skills. It is not just put it together like a little puzzle. And you need a lot of patience. Building even a tiny home has some challenges and costs. This category tends to like homes on wheels that they can take with them, either off the grid or an RV pickup, so where they can hook up to water. The smaller the house, the easier it travels. Next, we have container-built homes are becoming more popular and mainstream. While we're thinking that most of the container homes are in California, they are coming to Minnesota. I recently interviewed David Schiller of Paragon Homes, MN. He was the builder of this container home in Minneapolis, and he comes from a science background, figured it all out on how to build it, had a friend who is an engineer architect who helped him with plans. So there were 7 other competitors who were trying to get permits from the city, but he had done his due diligence. He was the only one that got the permits. These homes are all electric and net zero ready. That means if you install solar panels, your electricity is for free. The container is only a shell. It's 10% of the process. The other 90 is really traditional construction. This particular home has a full block cement basement with normal insulation protecting it from harsh weather. It's also, as I said, an all-electric home. And that means inside it's very modern. It is new construction and looks like a normal house, except for a couple of walls that show the container texture. For cooking, the builder chose an induction stove where the surface doesn't heat up. It is the magnetic connection between a pot, which is magnet, not all are, but it has to be magnetic. The pot heats up. So that means that your surface is a super easy cleanup. It doesn't burn on the surface. It doesn't go all over the place. It's just you wipe it down and you have a clean surface. It cooks way much faster. Cleanup is a breeze. While this home was built from 5 containers and does have 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, you can make it any size. You can even start with a couple of containers and build on later. Think like Legos. You could add a porch to the front. You could add a patio to the back. You could add other rooms at a different time. Now, let's talk about structurally. Oh, just wait here. This is the inside of the container house. It looks normal. It's got big windows, and these are high-performance windows as well. And you see a little bit of the corrugated surface along these walls and on the ceiling. So it's an exciting house, and it did sell, but the builder is available for more. So let's talk about structurally insulated panels. Those are called SIPs. They're made of compressed wood scrap into big panels and a slab of, I think, 4-inch insulation in between the two of them. It's a foam core, and it has holes or channels through them. So all you do is string your electricity through it. And then you make the holes for where you want the windows and doors to go. Yard Homes, who I interviewed before, which you can find on my YouTube channel, builds additional dwelling units and tiny homes. Additional dwelling units are called ADUs. An ADU can be built on as an additional home on an existing home site where it is allowed by the city and whoever owns the lot. And if mom, you better ask her first. Both Minneapolis and St. Paul approved ADUs in 2016 to increase urban density. Some are used as an in-law suite, a guest house, an Airbnb, an art studio, an office, a yoga studio. It can go on and on, whatever you want to use it for. Yeah, SIP homes are done with SIP panels, obviously. The panels are built in a factory, which eliminates weather problems. Here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, weather is a huge issue. You can only build during the summer where it's permissible. But if you're working with a factory-made panel, they work all year long. They're super high energy efficient, and they're harsh weather resistant. Imagine you have 4 inches of insulation on the outside. That's really, really, really resistant, weather resistant. And actually, the builder said you could heat it with a light bulb. I said, yes, but you're using LED lights, and LED lights don't emit any heat. So we need actual heat. So they do use heat pumps. So you can put these also on any foundation. You can put a SIPS panel house on a normal basement foundation. You can do slab. I'd recommend that you do a foam underneath the slab so the slab doesn't get too cold. You can put them on piers, or you can even put them on wheels. SIPS panels lock together according to your specific design and have cutouts for the windows and doors to be installed. The roof panels are 10 to 12 inches thick with insulation, and there are no gaps between the walls and the panels. So you have one panel of wood, and then the roof goes right on that, and there's no gaps. So it's sealed super tight, and there's no lost energy. It's totally sealed against leakage. The interior is minimalist in this particular 541 square feet by yard homes, with a modern kitchen, a living room, one bedroom, and even electric fireplace. Again, this is an all-electric home too. These too can be added on for a later date because they're just panels. Then you can extend it, especially if you're doing on slab. It's really easy to add on. And Yard Home says that they can build a house like this. Now, this is 541 square feet, but they can do just about any size that you want. It takes about 1 week to build this house. Traditional construction is 4 to 6 months. Can you imagine the savings in time and labor? And some of these you can even work with the builder on it to help build it yourself. So let's go on. Now we can talk about ICFs, which are insulated concrete forms. If you remember the 3 little pigs, they built their homes with straw or wood or bricks. Well, I haven't seen any brick buildings lately, but you can build with insulated concrete forms, which are called ICFs. Again, these are like Legos. Take 2 slabs of foam. They're separate. They're 47 inches long with a cavity of either 4 or 8 inches in between. They're linked together with steel clips, and you place them along the foundation like Legos. You build your first layer and then continue until you have an entire floor. And then they pour concrete. And of course, there is rebar to hold everything into place. And you have practically an indestructible home. The cement cures in the foam core. And one of their contractors told me that he has poured cement at 40 degrees below zero and it cured just fine. That's unheard of in the traditional concrete world. So you have insulation on the inside and the outside and a concrete floor. Wow, this is like an old fortress. It really withstands harsh weather like typhoons, hurricanes, high winds, even high water. It's practically an indestructible house. They used to be more expensive than traditional functional building or traditional building with sticks. But because wood has come up, the price of new homes has come up, and now it's pretty much parallel to ICFs. ICFs also make the house very tight and secure, energy efficient, and they can be all electric and net zero ready as well. Logic brand ICS has a catalog of tiny home designs for either warm or harsh climates. Canada is even colder than we are here in Minnesota. They're way ahead of us, but they already have designs for this, and you can build from a tiny home, a 1-level living tiny home, all the way up to a multi-story commercial building with ICFs. They're gaining popularity here. People in Minnesota think, well, we can't do the net zero here in Minnesota. It's too hard. This is an alternative construction to stick building. It's gaining popularity. There are some builders that have been using it for years, but others that say, nope, they don't know how to do it and they won't touch it. I think it's very exciting because it too can go up quickly once you have all your plans done. Another alternative method is the prefabricated modular. It's coming to a neighborhood near you. Builders have a circus full of challenges this year. Lumber has tripled in price. Land is hard to find. Skilled labor is scarce, and the demand is overwhelming. Some builders are already using SIPs, which are these insulated panels. More will be moving towards prefabricated assembled models using SIPs. There's a company called S2 Modular, builds the entire module inside a factory. They do it panel by panel, assemble it in factory, and deliver a fully assembled module that is pre-inspected, pre-permitted, 90% ready for finishing, and they deliver it by a Tesla truck. The advantages to factory builds is enormous. So if you have a module come in and they stack them into place, and it can combine with regular stick building, skilled builders have systems without weather complications. They can work all year round, and this is the one thing they do. So there's no teaching involved of new people. As I said, they're pre-inspected, pre-permitted, according to every location. This saves the builder a ton of time, labor, and ultimately a superior product because it hasn't been weathered, that is built to withstand harsh weather and is a concern, which is a real concern to all of us that are already experiencing climate change. We know it will continue to change. We don't know how. But every time we see a disaster area, the roofs are ripped off or the buildings caving in, all of these new products are meant to withstand harsh climates. What can possibly be the disadvantages of all this? Well, first, besides being your dream of living in your own digs, are you really ready to live this pared down lifestyle? And I'm sure you see them on TV and they're Marie Kondo to death. All the clothes are in little rolls and in drawers under the bed. You don't have a massive wardrobe. You have small kitchens. They don't have a ton of storage. There's no garage full of stuff that you can run to unless you want to build another garage. So you might want to try an Airbnb for, let's say, a few days or a week to see if you really love the lifestyle. The reality that looks like so much fun on TV might or might not be what you're expecting. But I know some properties advertise an entire family of 4 can live in a tiny house. Yes, they have decks and they have outside space in climates that allow for this. You want to know what works for you. Every city will have ordinances of what's allowed. As I said, Minneapolis and St. Paul in 2016 allowed ADUs or additional dwelling units. And that means that they're allowed to hook up to the water, they're allowed to hook up to the electricity, they're allowed to hook up to the gas. Of course, you have to have a lot large enough to put them on. Some of the suburban lots might be some easier, but you can also put them out off the grid, and you can have, what you really need is an electric and water system then, because you can make them all electric. So not all cities are tiny home friendly. You want to find out from the city, call the planning commission, get the rules, the regs. So consider that before you go too far, too fast. Not every bank finances tiny homes. There is limited financing. Most banks don't finance them. Locally, Drake Bank is the only one that I know that does finance a tiny home, and I know Yard Homes does use them. Some credit unions will finance a tiny home. You might want to have some cash reserves. You don't know how much it costs at this point. You will get estimates. What is your down payment? How much of the work? Sometimes you can do some of the work yourself. So homes on wheels fall under the motor vehicle category, and they are not financeable at all as a traditional home loan. You would have to get a different kind of personal loan to build a motor home. Well, there you have it. That's a brief overview of tiny homes. They've been around forever and they're not going away. And they're actually accelerating in their growth. So the advantages of a tiny home fills the gap for buyers who want to live small, have smaller budgets, and want to keep debts at bay. If that sounds like you, then you're a candidate for a tiny home. There are lots of options, including container homes, ICF homes, modular, and even converting a shed. You might be able to ask or build, you might be able to build your ADU on an existing home, even on the same lot as your parents or in-laws or friends or families, but you better check with mom first to make sure it's okay. So I hope that was fun. And if you have any questions about tiny homes, please call, make comments, text me. Be so happy to answer. So thanks for watching. Please tune in again next week and sign in so I can let you know what we're going to do before we do it. Thanks again. Hope to talk to you.